I guess people are going to be wondering, what am I doing here? Why am I talking? Why is the producer talking this much?
Yeah.
It's not really his job, is it?
Yeah. Should I tell them why?
I think you should probably explain what's going on right now. People are going to be very confused.
My producer Alex, he is, he's actually had his own shows, podcasting shows before. So, you know, and I'm comfortable with him. He's a cool guy. He can talk. Thinking of having him as the co-host, and you know, you're flat. What did you think when I asked you? Did you ever think that I would ask you? Like, did you think that like that would be a possibility, or is it kind of like you put yourself in like the producer place?
No, I'm never in that mindset. I mean, because when people ask me to produce their show, there's not really a lot of room for me to do anything else other than, you know, run all the controls. Like even just doing this right now, I'm having to hit buttons and switch cameras between us. It's a little more difficult. I'm not really set up for that. So it's usually that the producer doesn't really get involved really with the show, and I'm definitely not in that mindset. I'm just like I'm watching everything, camera angles, lighting, making sure things are looking the way they're supposed to, making sure nothing's crashing or blowing up here, because that's my job. That's what I'm getting paid for. So no, I didn't. That's not something that really occurred to me.
Well, I just forgot that you have to actually click the thing every single time.
Well, if we're gonna keep doing this, I'll have to make some adjustments because I need things a little bit closer to me. So we'll make those adjustments over time. But we'll see how this goes. You know, it's one of the things I don't think a lot of people realize. For people out there that don't do this kind of thing, when you're listening to a podcast or you're watching something and it looks and sounds polished, you probably have some basic idea of, okay, well, it obviously takes some level of work and money to make something look good and sound good, but I don't think a lot of people realize how much work is involved in really doing this, and especially doing it on a consistent basis. And that's one thing that we've talked about, and I know we had a great conversation with Tunji, who's going to be on the next episode here. Or I guess by the time this comes out, actually, so that one will already be out. But, you know, someone like Tunji, who's a content creator, and we've had many content creators on this podcast, you know, for many of those people, doing it on a regular basis is really, really tough because you have to make a commitment if you want to build an audience. But it's especially challenging sometimes if you are building a whole show around guests. And that's a lot of preparation, right? Because you're constantly having to chase after people, deal with scheduling, conflicts, people having to bail at the last moment, and then you've got no backup plan. So what do you do then? So
and just like even the recording part where like people are nervous, right? Like people don't know what to expect. But I don't really give them like a blueprint of what we're really going to talk about. It's sort of just like a vague like, oh, these are the topics, but then, you know, it's just basically, you know, like an improvise off the head, you know, just sort of talking, right? And like, you know, I understand the guests that come in that are like a little bit, you know, nervous, don't really know what to expect. So there's an element of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to give direction to some people because they're not going to be super comfortable in front of a microphone. If you're shoving it in their face and they've never done that. And you know, the other thing that complicates things is video, because people get self-conscious. They don't know how they're going to look on camera. They don't know necessarily how they're going to be perceived on camera, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking for a lot of people. And that's something, I mean, that's my job, to try to make people feel comfortable. And even you, I mean, that includes you too. Right, just trying to give you some kind of coaching before you even start to make sure that you feel okay about going into it, right? And now you've been doing this for 20 plus episodes now, and you've relaxed into it. You're definitely better than, you know, if I were to go back 20 plus episodes and looked at how you were conducting yourself back then, it's a radical change, and you keep getting better every time, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
Right? That's the goal.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I still can't stand my voice, though. I'm not gonna lie. I still have a hard time listening to it. That's the biggest thing. The video, I don't really give a shit. That's like, if you like how I look, then you like. If you don't like it, then I don't know. I can't really change for you. I like to think I'm a pretty decent looking guy, so whatever, right? But like my voice, oof, I didn't know I sounded like that. People say I have a good voice for it. A lot of people have actually said that. And that's actually one of the reasons why I ultimately decide to start the pod. So I'm like, I'm going to give the treat of my voice to the world.
Yeah.
But
well, nobody likes hearing their own voice. The first time I remember putting my voice to tape, that was a long time ago, actually, before I mean, as a kid, even just with a 4-track Tascam tape recorder, just trying to record music and trying to sing when I can't really sing. It's embarrassing. You don't want to hear that. And you don't actually believe that you actually sound like that. Oh, there's got to be something wrong. There's got to be something wrong with the recording because my voice doesn't sound that high.
Yeah. This is what people hear.
This is what people hear? Wow, that's annoying.
Yeah. Wow, God. No wonder this guy doesn't like me. No wonder Stacy doesn't fucking return my texts. God damn it. If that's the hardest part, then it certainly is not the hardest part, though. Fuck, I personally had a lot to think about based on, the direction of the pod, and because there's a lot of angles to it, dude, that I just didn't even consider, right? Because a lot of the inspiration I'm getting from and watching podcasts and things like that, these guys are established comedians or actors. So like, for example, like Theo Vaughn, Brian Callen, Brendan Schaub, Rogan. I mean, I don't really listen to Rogan anymore, but because I just don't think I actually just find his voice a little annoying. Lex Friedman. All these guys are, they have something. Their background is something else, right? So like a lot of the topics that we like usually talked about, and kind of like the direction of the pod, it's like they can do it. They have the luxury of doing it because they can just chalk it up to being comedians, right? They can say, well, this is like the reason why, like, we're comedians, we're actors, this is what we do, this is our brand. For me, it's a little different. It's like, all right, like Mo, like he just started a podcast. Who is he, right? He's just a guy, right? So some of the things we talked about, it's like, why would anyone agree with anything? It's not like I'm an expert in it. B, if I do say something that's over the edge, maybe a little dicey, it's just like, what, I can't like fall back onto anything. It's like, well, I'm a comedian. What did you expect for me to say, right? So there's that. And like I talked to Tunji about it when he was here. That 1 week when the Mickey episode came out on Tuesday, the next morning, when I got the text from my buddy that this could be a little dicey in terms of the content, I basically thought in my head that this is my life's over. Like it's done. Okay, like where am I gonna live next? What country am I moving to? What's my name gonna be? Like, it's because the thing is, I'm not saying I get like 1 million views in 2 hours once it goes up, but it just takes one person to really listen to the whole thing and screen record it, like that one little clip, and it's there forever. Yeah. Right. So, like, this is for the Mickey episode. I think we should just. I'm not in a place, and I'm sure like you wouldn't want to deal with it either, right? Like if someone took offense to it, dude, and they knew that someone was, that you were producing it for me, it's like, well, okay, why did this producer, go along with it? Like, does he think it's acceptable? Because like at the end of the day, your name is on the brand too,
Well, it's a it's a little more complicated. I mean, for me, I'd say the working relationship that we have is a little bit different than how I would operate perhaps with, and it's kind of it's evolved that way over time than how it would be with other people, because when someone hires me to do a job, they're not hiring me to judge the content that they're making, right? They're hiring me to make them look and sound good. I have no control over the content. I could think it's the worst. I could think it's the biggest piece of shit in the world. It's not my job to say anything. And if I said anything, that could easily get me fired, and I'll never work for them again. So I take a pretty hard stance at, like, I'm not, like, don't even, if you ask me, I have no opinion. Zero. I'm pushing buttons. I'm here to do a job. But it's a little different with you and I, because our relationship has evolved. Our working relationship has evolved that way, that you ask me for opinions, and I've become definitely more like, you keep calling me a producer, and sort of like, that's not a title I gave myself. I kind of just I just roll with it. But for me to be really a producer, one of the jobs of the producer is definitely to chime in and to set some boundaries. And if you're especially for the content that you're trying, and the kind of show that you're trying to producing too, right? And I now that I understand that this is causing a level of anxiety and concern for you, then we should figure out a way to evolve the show so that doesn't happen.
Well, yeah, because right? I was just thinking,
and it's, you know what, and I will just say, there's no denying that some of the racy content that you've talked about has created more clicks, more views. I mean, for the audience, not that we're trying to make it that way just for the sake of making it racy, but it came out that way with the guests, with the line of questioning. However, it's definitely, the positive thing that I'm taking out of this is that it's good for you to really think about, be mindful, like actively thinking about
100%.
What is this show supposed to be?
Right.
Because you want it to also represent you in a good way too, right? And you don't want it to be a problem. So it's definitely something that you should be actively thinking about right. Like, what do I want this to be?
Yeah.
So at episode, like, we're at episode what, 23, 23.
Right.
So what is this going to look like at episode 200, at episode 500? You don't necessarily want it to be at the same place too. You want the show to grow and evolve. Right. You want it to get better. You want the production to get better. You want the caliber of guests that are coming in to be better. That's all super important too.
Right. 100%. So, I mean, yeah, like, it really got me thinking the last episode we recorded, because I was thinking, okay, well, what is the end goal? Like, why did I start this podcast? Because I didn't really, when I first started, man, it wasn't really like something where I was thinking, okay, well, this is where I wanted to be after 22 episodes. It was sort of just like, let's start it. Let's give it a go. Let's see where it goes, right? So also think, man, if I do say something really over the edge and something basically just totally inappropriate, there has to be something, like, you would get in trouble, I think. Because someone would look at it, like, if we did, like, put a clip out that was, like, completely just, over the top, someone would be like, okay, well, who's allowing this to happen? Because there's sure as hell Mo isn't editing this, right? Like, who's the person behind this, the production? They're accepting this, they're letting this happen, right? I think,
I never actually really thought about it that way.
No, I think, dude, yeah, because it's an issue. Because you have it on your bio too. You're producing for enjoyour24, right? So like, people will look at you, and I know. Here's the thing. I know what you mean by, like, just like separating the two, where it's like, I'm just the producer, where I try to make the production look as best as it can, the lighting, the sound. the videography, whatever, and it's completely separate from the content and what I talk about. But it's not like that black and white, man, because people are going to look at it and think, well, because they'll be like, okay, well, where's...
You're definitely onto something. You're right. Actually, I had not, until you mention it now, I really didn't think about that. And I probably should take more responsibility as far as some of the stuff that we're putting out, because you're right. If I'm building a portfolio of stuff that's super raunchy and racy, that with content that is upsetting people and offending people left, right, and center, we're not there yet, but I mean, it's definitely something that we got to start thinking about.
Just think about, dude, if someone took offense to it to like an extreme degree where someone really got offended, they're not going to just look at me and say, okay, well, Mo's like the perpetrator. Like, it's like, who's all involved? Like, who actually supported this? Who's supporting it as we speak? Like, who made the video? Who's editing? Because the person that watches and gets offended, they know that there is a producer re-listening to it and making the clips, right? So it's just something to think about, because I was like, okay, well, is Alex okay with this? Like, right? Like some of the content, but I mean, also, man, there's an illusion of freedom, free speech that people think they have, but that we don't, which is an illusion. Like, the things we talked about with the Mickey episode in particular, like, they're not as bad as one would think, but it would also be so, I mean, I guess whatever you say is just going to be taken out of context. Anything. Yeah.
I guess the way I looked at it too is, and it's a little bit different, I suppose, if your job, if you've got a podcast and an established audience already, like, for example, like, just take, I won't call out any specific comedian, but let's just say you're a stand-up comic, right? And people know you for doing raunchy jokes, and your podcast is raunchy. Like, I've seen podcasts that are way worse, like 10 times worse than anything you've said, or 10 times worse than any of the guests have said, right? And you don't really see people, you see some people getting upset, but it's not enough for them. They're not going to do anything about it. It's like, well, it is what it is. So that's kind of how I was looking at it. But I suppose it is different if you were...
Because we're not that big of a brand yet. That's the thing. We're not making money off of this. We're not that big, right? Those podcasts that do say those kind of things, that do get heat for it, they can afford to just look at it and be like, all right, well, I don't give a fuck. Because they're already so big in their own sense, right? Like Rogan, like, for example, if his podcast completely
just look what's happened since he did that big, multi-million-dollar Spotify deal, right? I mean, he's been Spotify, I've lost count of how many episodes that they've pulled down because they found either they were pressured into taking it down, or someone inside the audience or someone within the organization got upset at certain guests, certain things that were said, and not just from the guests, but from Joe Rogan himself. I happen to like Joe Rogan. I think a lot of stuff that he's said has been taken out of context. I also don't agree with everything he's said, but he's also, you got to realize too, the guy's a comedian, and he's actively said, I mean, he's said this many times, I'm a dumb guy. Like, to quote him, like, I'm just a dumb guy. That's why he brings on people like scientists,
he has
politicians. He brings people on that are smarter than him to engage in conversation. But it's all about engaging in conversation. And people, I feel, have become so sensitive. Like, you have to walk on eggshells.
Mm-hmm.
It's like walking on eggshells. Like, you're worried about any little thing you say, and anything you've said in the past, 10, 15 years ago. People are going back in time, and people are losing jobs. They're getting fired because of things that they're saying. You know, so that's a problem. I also, I mean, I could go on and on about cancel culture, and there were some good things that come out of it, but also some bad things where I just think it's gone so extreme one way where...
I mean, you can't be woke enough.
I mean, I think that...
Like, whatever level you think you're woke, you could take it to another level.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. Like, people that, you know, consider themselves woke, you're not woke enough. You could actually be more woke than what you think you are, right? So, like, there's no end game to it. There's no beating it, right? Like, I could come on here. I'm being serious, man. Like, I'll say right now, like, this past week was so hot. I hated it. Like, it was way too hot, really sunny. Someone could easily go on and be like, well, you're not grateful. Why are you being ungrateful? It's always rainy. Like, what do you think about people that are always in the rain? Like, it's like, what can you and can you not say anymore?
Plus the thing is,
Like,
you can't please everyone. And you can't... The one thing I will say is, I tell this to people all the time that ask me about, well, you know, for advice, like, you know, should I start a podcast or not? And oftentimes my answer is no, you shouldn't. You got to think really, really hard about this, because not only is it a lot of work and you got to commit to it, but if you're going to also shut down your entire production because of one thing somebody said, like, you have to have a pretty thick skin to just exist on the internet. The YouTube comments, I mean, your podcast hasn't gotten to the point where it's gotten such a big audience where you're going to have thousands of comments. It's
starting to get there. There are a few comments where I'm like, ooh, it's a little sting.
Right. But you got to be willing to take that, though.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. That's the thing, though. Like, if it's some random fucking buddy on TikTok that has no profile or any photos or anything that says something like, oh, this guy is so mid, why is he talking about girls? That's actually funny to me. I mean, that comes with it. I get it, right? But it just gets a little hard for me when, if I want to, like, apply for, like, a, you know, a respectable career down the road, you know, just have some sort of, like, you know, just some sort of, like, career, and an employer, you know, does a little digging, sees one of the clips or something like that, and the employer just doesn't even want to, like, deal with, like, even something that's, like, a little bit dicey, and just, like, throws me to the side. Like, that's what I'm worried about, right? And, like, obviously you can't please everyone, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you just gotta walk on eggshells, man. Like, I don't know. I've already sworn less than I've had in any of the episodes. Like, I'm actually, like, consciously thinking about it, and it's not good, because I'm actually, like, just, like, way too, like, aware of what I'm saying right now, because, like,
yeah. Well, here's the thing: is this podcast is for people that listen to the audio version of the podcast. The podcast is marked as explicit in the Apple, but you only...
Right, but that's my thing. But the thing is, man, like, I get what you mean, but an employer doesn't care. Like, they're not gonna, like, an employer or, like, a parent that I'm coaching, they're not gonna be like, oh, damn, Mo had the explicit thing on, he wins, it's my fault, right? Like, they don't care, right? Like, it could be in bright blue colors where it says explicit. Do not, like, listen under your own discretion. But then they listen, it's like they don't, it doesn't matter, right? Like, they don't care that I have the label of explicit on it. Like, thanks for that, but I'm still listening. I'm still seeing what you're going to say, right? Like, it doesn't change the fact that what I'm saying is still offending them. That's my point. Like, you're thinking of very technically. There's a lot of, like, nuance to that, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I suppose we could even have a banner like on the start of the YouTube video, but I don't even see. I don't think that would make a difference.
Right. But then so that like entices the person to actually watch it, like want to like listen to like the whole thing more, right?
So I think the goal then should be to let's just continue to tweak it and evolve it, right? Like like you said, you're being more aware of how many times you're swearing on the show.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably a good thing. Anyways, I'm not saying if you want to say fuck, I don't care. I mean, whatever. But I don't think swearing on a podcast is really going to upset anyone.
Yeah.
It's just
not the swearing. It's just the content of what I was saying. Right.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
I mean, I do have a friend that's pretty. He's well established. He knows what he's talking about. He's very open minded to like both sides of the political correctness and political incorrectness. And a few times during the episode with Mickey, because I sent him the link, we listened to it together actually, and he was like, "Ooh, like that's where it gets a little." Like that's where it gets a little dicey, right? And that's the thing though, like I highly doubt anyone would I wouldn't say highly doubt actually. It was a pretty racy episode, but I highly doubt anyone would take so much offense to the things I said to the point where they like expose me on social media. But I don't want to go down that road where a respectable, like an employer looks at it and just they wouldn't even take offense to it, but they just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
if it comes back and bites them in the ass in the future. That's the thing.
I fully respect that, and I've said this to you off air before, but the way I approach how I post on like the type of stuff that I talk about, whether it's on a podcast or a commentary on something, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, I assume that everything I do on social media can be seen by everybody and like just anybody. So having that thought in my mind helps me like internally regulate and think twice before I hit post. How, if my mom read this, how would she react? If my boss read this, how would they react? So I think that's. But
how do you know though anymore? That's the thing, because everything is taken out of context.
I think you can get a pretty good idea of.
Can you?
I think so. I mean, I think there are certain topics. Well, it's tough. Like even with things like politics, like I try. There are certain topics I don't really like to get involved with in discussion with anybody. Politics and religion; those two things are just I try to completely stay away from because I don't know what other people's beliefs are.
But you do know you can talk about it.
Like I feel like I should. The thing is,
you should, right? Like you should.
That's the thing that I constantly struggle with because I feel that we've lost the ability to have reasonable discourse. Like at some point, we all, we could have conversations with people that had different beliefs, that had, I feel like somebody that's a Republican and a Democrat or a conservative and a liberal should be able to have an adult conversation and not agree on everything, but at least come to some kind of common ground or a middle ground on certain points, right? But it's not like that anymore. And even if you look at politics, if you look at not just in Canada, you look at other countries like the United States with all the different parties, there's extremes on both sides, right? And I don't like what I'm seeing right now anywhere. I don't like how extreme everybody is. It's either It's very black and white. It's either you're in this camp or you're in that camp, and there's no common middle anymore. And nobody, like, you know, I have friends who have become so extreme in their own beliefs. They're like, if anyone disagrees with them, like, I don't want to talk to you. They just completely cut those people out of their lives. And I just don't think that's a healthy way to, I don't think that's a good way to go through life.
Insane.
I don't want to, you know what? I don't even want to live in that world where we live in these isolated camps from one another. I just don't think that's a good way to go.
Isn't it a little ironic that people, like, we think we're becoming more progressive and more open-minded where we can discuss different things, but it's actually doing the opposite where, like you said, if you believe a certain thing, like, some people are just like, don't even come close to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people, we think as a society we're actually, like, moving towards the right direction.
Well,
but we're not. Like, it's like we can't even discuss anything, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, if I was working for corporate right now and, like, an employer saw something I said and they didn't really, I wouldn't even say they disagreed, but they didn't, like, really understand what I was going for, they wouldn't even, like, give me a chance to, like, explain myself or have an open discussion about what I meant. They would just be like, all right, you're done. You're like, you look bad on the company. Like, this is, like, you can't.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah,
you would think that is not actually happening, but the sad reality is that it actually is happening. And you even look at it, if you look at any big corporation now, and this is what actually pisses me off, is you have companies like Disney firing actors and directors because of something they said on Twitter that doesn't align, quote unquote, with their corporate values, right? And I just feel like with certain limitations, obviously, if you're a racist piece of shit, then you deserve to be called out for it. Of course,
yeah. And we're not saying,
No, but there are people that are losing their jobs because whatever they say doesn't necessarily, in this example here with Disney, and I won't call out anyone specific, but Disney's kind of known to be a family company, right? They create lots of stuff that's, designed for families. They got their start doing cartoons. And so you do have to be careful, even if you're a big name actor. I mean, just because you're paid a lot, just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean that your job is safe. You could lose your livelihood. People won't want to work with you again, right? If you don't align with the corporate values. And there's never been a time more so ever than now where you do have to be really careful about what you're saying if you're working for somebody. And that goes not just for celebrities, but it goes like all the way down the totem pole to just people like you and me, right? Just blue collar workers working for companies. You do have to be careful about what you're saying. You have to think about, well, who is my employer? What do they represent? Because even when you're not at work, you still have to be careful, because when you're on social media, a lot of employers look at you like you're representing their brand even outside of work, which I don't actually agree with. And not all companies do this, but certain companies do. And
isn't there like a certain legal thing with that? Like, you shouldn't actually.
I don't know. I'm no lawyer. Don't ask me for advice when it comes to.
Like, I swear there has to be some sort of divide where, like, if you're at work, that is work, but then outside of that, like, you are who you are outside of work. I'm not saying, like, if you're if you're a fucked up guy and a criminal, that's like, you should be able to work because it's outside of work. But I'm just saying, like for example, like, if I was to work at a certain company, and, like, me doing this podcast, I'm allowed to say whatever, I mean, it's just like, I don't know, like, what do corporations expect, like, a person to, like, just be all about the corporation? Like, they're not allowed to start a podcast, they're not allowed to have their opinion about something, right? Like, is there, like, what are we talking about? Like, what's, you know? Because, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, now I'm just thinking of, like, what can we talk about on this pod, right? Like, what can or cannot we?
Well, you know, one thing that I want to see, for if it was me, just, I mean, because I'm producing this, so I'm pretty closely involved. But for me, what I would want to see more of is you have other guests on, like, I just want to see, like, the level of, I want to see thought-provoking, interesting conversations. And I'm not saying that we haven't seen that yet, because we certainly have, maybe more so with certain guests. But I think I want to see this show elevate a little bit in terms of just conversation, in terms of thought-provoking
expertise,
like that conversation that you had with Tunji. Like, that's just a perfect example of, like, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that guy. Where are those people? Like, I want to see more of that. That's the kind of thing that I want to see. At least I can speak to me. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I want to listen to and watch, is people like that.
You know what's fucked up,
right?
though?
And, you know, there's something to be said about watching and listening to people talk about struggles. Like, as someone who's a content creator, of just talking about the ups and downs of doing it, you know, of Tunji talking about his comedy career.
The mental health that goes along with
the mental health issues, the struggle of, like, just trying to figure out, like, why am I doing this? Am I enjoying this? Do I still want to be doing this? Like, I love watching stuff like that, because you can relate to that. Everybody can relate to that at some point.
Alex, you know what you just said, that, you know, more so Tunji, more thought-provoking. I guarantee you someone out there is going to be like, oh, well, you don't think your other guests are thought-provoking, you don't think your other guests are worth talking about, like, right? Like, that's, as soon as you said that, I was like, okay, that's something someone's going to blow out of proportion. Like, that's just something someone's going to, right? Like, you can't win. Like, what, you see what I mean there? Like, what you said was like, oh, I want more of Tunji. I want more of thought-provoking people like him, where they talk about the struggles, where it's like, okay, someone's going to look at that and be like, oh, you're discrediting all the other guests, or they didn't bring anything to the table. That's not what you're saying. I get what you mean.
Not at all. No, I think they all do. I mean, because I'm sitting here editing this stuff and I'm laughing my ass off, you know, at some of the things that are being said, and they're being hilarious. It's hilariously entertaining. But I think we can maybe strike a better balance too between that stuff, like the edgy stuff,
right,
and the more philosophical.
Because not everything has to be edgy.
No,
like,
it doesn't have to be.
Right. No, I get it. No. Yeah. There could be, the guests can be all sorts, right? More thought-provoking, more things that, like, people can relate to, especially mental health. I really want to go down the mental health road, man. I want to get, like, people that are, like, you know, studying it in their master. They have their PhD on different psychological avenues. I really want to do that, and I'm gonna hit up a lot of my profs from school, because I didn't really listen to them in class, but from what I do remember, there's pretty interesting points, and I'm upset that I didn't. So yeah, I mean,
well, it's a learning experience. Don't beat yourself up too much there.
Like, here's the thing. I sent the audio link to one of my friends that is a woman, and she basically said
hold on. What did you send her?
I sent her the audio link of
what?
The Mickey episode.
The Mickey Kennedy episode.
Right, yeah. And I was just like, okay, what do you think of this? Like, just be honest with me, right? Like, I know you're honest. I know you care about what I do, and, like, you don't want me to, like, get in trouble or anything, so just be honest, right? And she basically said, I got 40 minutes in, still at work, so I can't fit it all right now. And no, not misogynist at all, in my opinion. I actually enjoyed the conversation. You made good points, even if I didn't fully agree with everything. And then she went on to say she actually wrote a big paragraph on why she disagrees with me in terms of like the cheating part.
Yeah.
Right. She just gave her opinion.
Okay, I remember you sent me a screenshot.
I sent you a
I thought those
screenshot,
were
right.
good, really good comments.
Right, exactly.
So, okay, so let me ask you this. When you read something like that, in your mind, your own thought process, doesn't that really contradict some of the other stuff that was said?
Absolutely.
So how do you even make a decision then
exactly
about do I publish this episode or do I not publish this episode?
I'm just thinking right now in terms of employment. Right? Like, what if the employer that I was trying to impress had a completely different opinion on what my friend said, right? Like,
yeah,
that, you know, that didn't, like, doesn't even think of it this way, or doesn't think of it in a
that's a tough one to answer.
Right? Like,
because if that's something, if you don't want to risk it, then really the only answer I have for you is then
to
don't make episodes like that. Don't have conversations, that kind of racy discussion with people then. Right? Because you if that's going to be a concern, then you can't have that. Because that's going to just be looming over your mind.
Because
you know,
not every person is like my friend.
Right.
Not every person is going to listen.
Everybody has a different opinion.
Right. And some people might not even like. Some people might not even give it a chance. They'll just be like, "Oh, it's done. I already hate this guy. It's already tarnished. This person's toxic." Right. They're not even give me a chance. Right. So I mean, like I told her after, I'm like, yeah, those are really good points, but I had to delete it because it's really dicey. And she said, why? I liked it. I think everyone should have those types of convos because everyone has a different perspective you can learn from. It's great and all. I understand that, but
yeah,
when it comes to someone that's hiring me or has something that like I need, like I'm representing some sort of brand, like they're not gonna be like, oh, well, let's sit down and like actually really think about what it's like. I'm very expendable in that case. I don't have the leverage of being able to have a discussion with that person. They'll just be like, next, like you're done. Right?
Yeah. You know, it's funny because you would think that you should be able to be yourself, but the reality is that a lot of corporate jobs, when it comes to HR, human resources, right? When people profile you, people pass judgment when they don't really know you. So, and I can speak to this as someone who's done hiring before. In my early career working in tech, I know this when it was part of the HR process. We would check to see if somebody had a social media profile, like a presence online, right? Period, right? And this is the funny thing. If you did have a presence online, and if we found posts on Facebook, like if your feed was just like you drunk every weekend, we wouldn't hire you. You could have been an amazing person, an amazing worker, super intelligent, really good at your job, but you just like to party hardcore on the weekend, right? You think you'd be able to separate those two. But unfortunately, you get judged and you would never know it because they would never call you. And we definitely did that. And here's the other crazy thing. If you had zero presence online, we would also judge you. You know, our thought process would be, well, what's wrong with them? What are they trying to hide? So you can't win. So the only thing you can really do is have an online presence, be professional, and don't post anything, period, that you think is going to get you into trouble with a potential employer. Period. That's the only thing I can think of. Right? Until you get to the point where, you know, you've got 500,000 subscribers and you're making lots of money in ad. Like if this became a full-time job and you've got revenue coming in and this is a business at that point, then it's like, well, what does it matter?
Leverage is on my side.
I'm my own employer at that point, right? It doesn't matter. But you're not at that point. So yeah, I think we've talked enough about the whole process and what the show needs to be, but we'll sort of let's talk about some current events, but on still tying it in with online content, social media. I don't know what's going on with Instagram right now, but it's not good, and they're getting a lot of heat for this. So a lot of people use Instagram. Both you and I use Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
This has driven me crazy, but for the last couple of weeks, it seems to have gotten, just the feed itself has gotten worse and worse and worse. I'm seeing less from people accounts that I follow, and I'm seeing more sponsored ads, and I'm seeing because now Instagram's trying to copy TikTok with shorts, basically, right? So I'm seeing suggested like, because you follow this account, we think you'll like this, and it's completely unrelated. I'm seeing all of a sudden, everything in my feed now is all just random cat videos from accounts I don't follow, and I don't understand that, because it's not like I have a cat.
You into cats, buddy?
I have a cat, but it's not like I'm following a bunch of pet accounts. I actually don't follow anything like that. I don't understand why it's suggesting this to me, but Instagram's CEO has come under fire, and he's talking about all these changes that they're going to be making. The one and only thing I care about, that I want them to do, give me the option at least to have a chronological feed. I want to see posts that I care about, that I follow, in the order of oldest to newest. I don't understand why they can't give people that.
It was like that though at some point, wasn't it? Like when it first came out.
I think it was when it was brand new.
Like you would literally only see the people accounts you were following. Yeah, like that's all you would see. That's the whole point. You follow someone to see their content, not see someone else's content that you have no idea who it is.
It's weird,
right?
because
like,
Facebook is like that too, right? It's not like Facebook gives you a chronological feed. They serve you up posts that they think are relevant to you, and obviously there's going to be and I get it. Look, I'm not averse to companies making money. They got to pay their bills, and frankly, I'm using a free service. That's the underlying contract that we have signed when we use these services, is that in order to get something for free, we're giving up personal information, and I totally am aware that they're collecting my data, selling it to advertisers. I have the choice. If I didn't like that, I could just delete my account, but I'm still using them because I get value out of it. But so there's nothing wrong with making ads. Or having ads and making money, but I still want to see more of the stuff that I am interested in, the people that I follow. I don't want them to serve up random 30-second shorts that I just why are you showing me this all of a sudden? And you know what? It just makes me not want to be there anymore. A couple of times this week, I just really thought about why am I on here? Why don't I just delete my account? Because I don't want to be on here.
Because you know they're watching you with like what your interests are and like what you like watch on like different platforms.
Yeah.
Right? Like on YouTube or like whatever you fucking search up on Safari. Like they're all like connected somehow, right? So like if you search up like, I don't know, because it's happened to me so many times, dude, where I'm like, I even talk about it. Like I say it out loud. Like I'll say something like Popeye's chicken to my friend, and I swear to God, the first thing I see on Instagram is like a video from like a Popeyes or I swear to God, they're listening to everything we say.
That's a myth. I know a lot of people believe that. A lot of security researchers have done, I don't know about Android specifically, but I know on iOS, because iOS as a platform is so locked down. Like Apple doesn't allow stuff like that to happen. They're very careful
That's
about
what you think.
Well, the thing is, for an app to be listening in the background, it has to actually ask permission. Like it has to actually prompt the user with, do you want to allow access to the microphone? Anything like the microphone and the camera on your device, it has to ask for that. And there's been a lot of research into figuring out, like, is Instagram listening? And all the stuff that I've read shows that there's no way it's doing that, but it's serving up these relevant ads other ways. Now, also remember that Facebook owns Instagram. Right, so
whatever you do,
you know, that's the funny thing is that people think they're sticking it to Facebook by deleting their Facebook account, and then they have Instagram. It's like, well, sorry, all that data is owned by Facebook, right. So you're not really helping yourself. You think you're being rebellious by not using Facebook.
Yeah.
Makes no fucking difference.
Facebook's still getting the bank.
Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, there's cross-pollination between those platforms. Facebook owns WhatsApp as well, so that's another app. That's, if you care about security, you can't use Facebook, you can't use Instagram, you can't use
WhatsApp is encrypted. Yeah. Well,
there
so-called.
But again, I don't know how much I trust that level of encryption. I don't really use WhatsApp. I don't know that much about it. But if I cared more about encryption, like I still, like even something like Telegram or what's that other app? Signal has end-to-end encryption, and those ones I know are a lot more. Encryption? Yeah, Telegram's encrypted, and Signal is also end-to-end encrypted.
I know hella Persians that are on Telegram.
I don't use it. I don't know anybody
it's more
on
like
that.
a foreign
Have
thing.
you used it?
Well, my family in Iran does. That's how they talk. They don't.
Yeah.
Like we don't.
Is that something like people there? Do they really care about privacy? Are they more sensitive to it?
I think it's like it may be privacy. I don't know if it's that, but it's like more. I think it's just more like it's easier for them. I guess I don't know, something about it. Like WhatsApp's a very foreign thing. Like if you go to like Mexico or wherever, like Latin America, where that's all they're using. Like they're not using iMessage. They're not really using Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, that's interesting because we get we're all in a bubble. Like we think the services that we use here are what everybody uses worldwide, but it's totally not the case.
No, like people don't like I've seen so many times. I remember I was in Mexico airport. I would see people like, one thing that a lot of like people do like in foreign countries, they like talk into like they do like voice notes instead of actually typing it out.
I noticed that. That drives me crazy. I don't understand what people like. Why are people doing this like a walkie-talkie thing?
Well, it's easier than texting. Like I don't know. Like you get it. You get out what you're trying to say.
That's true. I'm self-conscious about it. Like I won't do that in public. Like I understand that my phone, like I can dictate to Siri,
right,
and it does a pretty good job.
It looks weird if someone does it.
It's weird. I think there's something about in Western culture, like we're all highly sensitive to talking to devices. But I don't know if maybe people are,
because people don't want to hear. People don't want other people to hear what they're saying, or like, you grab the booze, buddy. Like, you know what I mean? Like no one's. But there, it's like it's whatever. Like people say whatever they want. They don't care, right? And other people don't care what the other person's saying, right? Like if they do say some like weird shit, it's like, okay, well, people are doing their own thing. People are worried about their own shit, right? That's another thing. That's a good point. Like people are way too into other people's shit here. It's like, live your own life, man. Like say whatever the fuck you want to say, right? And don't judge me. I want to drink a 6-pack of Colt 45s. It's not Bud. Like you got an issue with that? Like you think I'm like a weirdo? Like fuck off.
Yeah.
Right. So.
You know, it's interesting about TikTok too, is I've really learned something making these clips for TikTok. I can't believe how successful it's been.
I know.
I did not expect that going into it, because I've done clips for other platforms, and there's something about I don't know what it is. There's something special about that platform where the reach on certain videos can blow up, whereas other platforms you got to work way harder to get that.
So I noticed
you probably know more about it than that platform.
I don't. That's the thing. I'm the same level as you, dude. We started posting on TikTok for this podcast at the same time. I wasn't into it. Like, I wasn't a big TikTok guy. I had no idea how to use it, and I just refused to learn how to do it. That's the thing too, because I was like, it's too late for me to learn. But two things I've noticed. I don't know if you've noticed it. So the one video of Luca where he said Vancouver people aren't nice, I remember posting that at around, what was it, like 10:30, 11 p.m. And it's weird with TikTok. It may have been a little bit earlier because I kept checking for a while. It may have been like 9:30, something like that. And for a good hour and a half, I think it got like 1 like, right? And I think it was like, I was like, okay, well, fuck, this one's This one's a chalk up. Like, this one's done. I swear to you, I woke up the next morning in a span of like 10 hours with 500 likes. Not 500, like 300 likes, about 30 comments, and just a bunch of views. Like, so it's weird. Like, I feel like TikTok, it takes, like, when you post something, it doesn't actually get noticed within the first like half an hour. Like Instagram, it takes a little while, and there's like a grace period where like it blows up and then it dies down, like dies completely down, like no views for like 5 hours.
That. I've been obsessively looking at the analytics.
Yeah, and then
you can see that,
and then it just skyrockets like for another like couple hours, and then it drops down. So it's like an up and down type thing, right? Like the video about with Maggie and Maya about Persian family, it's still getting views. It's still
I love that clip. I love that clip because even though she's talking about Persian families, who can't relate to that? Doesn't matter what culture. Maybe some more than others, right? But there's certain aspects of your family where you think, well, they're all kind of crazy.
Yeah,
they're like, you care about each other, you love each other, but there's some level of
shit.
Yeah, but there's some level of craziness that you kind of just embrace, and it becomes endearing to somebody. I think that's why that post was successful. That clearly, just reading the comments, resonated with a lot of people that are Persian, but I think it resonates with everybody. That's the way I look at it.
It resonates. I feel like it resonates a lot more with Persians though. So, because a lot of Persian, we got a lot of comments saying like, if this isn't the truth, like if this, like how facts is this, right? Like, I think when
I can resonate with this though, because my family, we're mixed, because my dad is from Greece, right? He's Greek, and my mom's side of the family is from Spain, right? So you got Greek and Spanish blood, and there's just something about just watching my parents, their dynamic, the two of them,
just chaos,
just growing up. Like ever since I was a little kid, I can remember they've always acted the same way. But I don't know if you watch Seinfeld, but if you ever watch like the relationship between George's parents, Frank and Estelle, how fucking crazy they are sometimes, right? I feel like that's my parents.
Yeah, they'll
just blow up at each other for the smallest, most trivial thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, not even that long ago, I spent a lot of time with my family. I go over for dinner and get to see them. And I just remember, not even that long ago, a couple months ago, I knock on the door and before I've even managed to step into the door to say hello, my dad walks into the hallway and starts asking me for a favor. He's like, "Oh, I've got to. Do you have a box that's? I'm not even gonna attempt to do his Greek accent, but he's like, do you have a box that's big enough, because I gotta transport my golf trophy." I'm like, I can probably, there is a warehouse at my work. I can probably find you a box, right? I didn't think it was that big of a deal as far as the request is concerned. Mid-sentence though, as he's trying to explain himself, my mom shuts him down. She's like, "Oh, stop asking him for something so trivial." She's like, you're a big baby. Just go out and buy a box. Why does it matter? And she's like, even your friend Fernando last week, he was laughing at you because you kept on like, you're obsessed about transporting this trophy. Like, just like, it's like they're yelling at you. And then he's telling her to shut up.
Oh.
Yeah, he's like, shut up.
Don't tell me what to do.
It's just like they're crazy.
Golf trophy. So he's pretty good at golf.
He's actually pretty good. He's a pretty good golfer.
It was probably also like a little flex. Like, yeah, my golf trophy, dude. Like, I need a box for my golf trophy. If it was for like
gotta box my golf trophy.
Yeah. If it was for like his fucking like, I don't know, like golf club, it would have been like,
It was a big trophy. Like, not even a little one. It was like, 3-4 feet tall. Pretty big trophy.
Right.
But
the reference you made about Seinfeld, I had no idea, because it's the shittiest show ever. It's so boring.
Really, you're not a Seinfeld fan?
I'm a Friends guy.
Okay.
Friends to the death.
No, I love Friends too, but Seinfeld's on a whole.
So apparently there's this thing where you can't be a fan of both. Like you have to be a fan of either Friends or Seinfeld.
According to who?
It's like this like little like debate, like a little like
I don't agree with that.
It's like two different camps, two different cults.
I think you could like different things.
I'm Friends
for different reasons.
Well, they're both sitcoms, but I'm not gonna lie, man. I've watched like 3 or 4 episodes of Seinfeld, and with me, like with shows, it's like, yeah, it's like people are always like, yeah, you just gotta keep watching, man. You'll get into it. Like it starts off, so it's like, no, like if it gets to a point and I'm still bored, it's like I'm out. I'm just done.
What season did you start at? Like what episode?
Season 1. I just want to get to know.
It doesn't become. Seinfeld doesn't really get into it. You got to start at season 3, like in some of the later episodes.
I started season 1 because I want to get to know the characters, get a little, emotional connection with them.
Well, even in the first season, they recast the actor that was playing George's dad. They recast. He's totally different, and even Kramer is very different. That character doesn't get wacky until about season 3.
I think I saw one episode from like season 4 or 5. I think he's so annoying.
Fair enough. It's not for everyone.
Kramer's one of the most overrated characters in TV history.
Really? Okay.
Like, man, Friends is so much better than Seinfeld in every single way. Like it's almost like weird how much better it is, and people that disagree are like, I don't judge. That's one thing I judge. If you like Seinfeld and don't like Friends, I think you're. I don't think you're kind of off.
I don't think one is better than the other. I just think they're very different shows.
But usually
different audiences.
But the thing is, usually if you like one, you hate the other. So if you're a fan of Friends, you hate Seinfeld.
There's a lot of shows that I like that are really, really different. Like I'm also a huge fan of Frasier. I don't know if you ever watched that, but I thought that was an absolutely brilliant show. It still stands up. I just got through the whole series again.
I remember seeing it on TV.
I just think that that dynamic between Dr. Frasier Crane and Niles, his brother, the writing on that show was just so sharp. But again, if you look at Frasier, Friends, Seinfeld, very different tone, very different style of comedy, very different. They're all good. They're just very different. But I totally get it. You're not alone. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that just do not like Seinfeld at all.
It's insanely, like it's just so mediocre. It's so not funny, man.
I find that I watch. Your disgust of Seinfeld is hilarious.
Like Jerry's just not funny to me.
I've seen his stand up. I think he's really, again, comedy. 2 things: comedy, music, totally subjective. I like Jerry. I think he's hilarious. I've seen his stand up in person, and I think he's funny. But not everyone's gonna like it, and that's fine. That's fine.
I don't think anyone should like it. Like
now you just crossed the line.
I'm crossing the line right now. I don't think anyone should be liking.
You're saying people aren't allowed to like the same things that you like? Is that what you're saying?
Man, I don't know. The only kind of funny guy is the.
See, now we're gonna. You thought those other clips on TikTok pissed people off. This is gonna piss people off.
Seinfeld is so mid, man. It's so mid.
Oh, hold on. I gotta stop you right there. I'd be meaning to ask you this because I'm a lot older than you, and I'm like out of touch with modern day slang.
Right.
What the fuck does that mean? You're not even speaking English right now. Mid? So what is that? Middle of the road? Is that middle of the road? Is that what that means?
So I first saw it when like artists would drop a new album and like Instagram, like Complex or Complex Music or whatever would like announce it, like Drake just dropped Certified Lover Boy or Kanye dropped Donda. And then in the comments, people that would listen to it that didn't think it was that good would say mid album, mid at best. So mid is what you think it is.
Middle of the road.
Like mid.
Like not medium, great, kind of mediocre sort of.
But it's more so towards the shitty end of like, this isn't very good.
So is that more of like a word used in like the hip hop community? Like people that, because I don't.
Well, it's more like
I've never heard that before. I've never seen that online.
Yeah. Well,
fuck. People watching this because I know everyone that watches your shows in their early 20s and they're like, this dude's so fucking out of touch. He's so old. Why are you here?
What is mid? What is that? Does that mean middle? Is that middle of the road? Middle of the pack? Essentially what that means. Yeah, that's what it means, right?
Oh, I get it. It makes sense when you explain it.
If you go on like I'll send you if you go on comments of Instagram when someone drops a new song or drops a new like shoe or whatever, it's just like people will be like, oh, so mid, right? So back to the main point. Seinfeld is just so mid, and it's not even, I wouldn't even say, I think I'm kind of being, my opinion on it is being influenced by the fact that Friends is just a masterpiece. So it makes everything else look like dog shit. So, I mean,
I do think Friends is up there.
Like, I think
for sure.
Friends is like, I think Friends
anytime
is like,
I think of like there's so many funny moments in that show, but I think one thing, if I had to pick one scene to show somebody,
I kind of feel like I
as
know
an
what you're about to say.
example of what Friends is about, look no further than Ross in the bathroom with the leather pants, with the shaving cream, trying to get those tight pants off. And just the physical comedy aspect, like that just perfectly encapsulates the best of what that show is.
And you know what's funny? Ross is the one character that people kind of like get pissed off about because he's so like weird, like dorky, awkward kind of guy, and he bags Rachel.
I think that Rachel, character gets better over time, and I actually think as an actor, I think his name is David Schwimmer, right?
David Schwimmer,
yeah. I think he's really underrated. I think he was really good in that role as that character, and it got better over time.
Yeah. No, yeah, I thought the one scene I thought you were gonna say is when Ross, like when they're trying to get the couch.
Pivot.
Like, it's just, oh man, like that one scene is better than anything in Seinfeld has ever created.
I have to admit that I've laughed at a lot of funny moments in Seinfeld, but the couch scene, so I'm old enough to have watched that show when it was on like cable TV, one new episode every week, right? And when that episode aired, because like there was no social media, right? And the internet was a thing, but it was like, you kind of talked about it at school with people. But I remember when I watched that scene with the couch when they're trying to get it up the stairs, I was laughing so hard, like tears. Like my stomach hurt from laughing so hard. It was such a good moment. And I'll watch that. I still laugh hard.
It's so good, man.
It's still good.
Because I think it's candid, man. I don't think Ross, I don't think David Schwimmer was supposed to even say that way. I think he just started
it was totally
he was like in the moment, and you'll see bloopers and there's like, shut up. Like they're just like, they die laughing, right? Oh man, dude, yeah, I remember like
I think that was a real, when I remember watching behind the scenes, I believe that was a real couch too. I think that's why, because it added to the physical comedy, them struggling with the weight of a real couch, right?
Okay,
and it's pretty funny watching.
I'd assume it's a real couch.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm not. It's not like a.
Well, no, a lot of shit's props, right, in TV shows. But like they wanted, I believe there was a moment. One of them was, I can't remember who it was. They were saying in the show that they wanted to work with the weight of a real, because it would add to the physical comedy, make it more real, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Yeah, you're right. Watching the bloopers of them struggling and having to put it down because they can't hold it. They're just all busting a gut.
Dude, there's like 6 different like mixtapes, like compilation videos of like bloopers of Friends. Because it's like how, like, imagine how funny it would be to be on set. Just like,
how do you get it? How do you get anything done?
You can't. Personally, like, Chandler is my fucking spirit animal. He is so funny. He is in my opinion, the funniest character on in TV history. He plays his role to a fucking T. Like, they couldn't have made it better with who they picked. Like, what's Mike Perry, or what's his name? Oh, you gotta cut that out. I can't believe
I'm drawing a blank.
Perry, something Perry, right?
Matthew Perry.
Yeah,
Matthew Perry.
Mike Perry. Fuck, it's like a hockey player.
Yeah. The one thing I'll never forget that he said to Joey, I don't remember what Joey said to him, but it was something really stupid, as Joey tends to be.
Yeah.
And
I think they fucked up Joey a little bit by the end. I think I don't think the direction they made his character go was, they made him a little too stupid. Like they overdid it a little bit.
I don't know. Anyways, but he said something really stupid, and Chandler just looks at him and he goes, "You gotta stop the Q-tip when there's resistance."
So you know what's it just gets, the thing with Friends, it ages like fine wine, because when I first saw that scene, when I first started watching Friends, I was like, what, 9 or 10? I didn't know what that meant. Right? I didn't know what a Q-tip necessarily was. I didn't know what it meant by resist. Like, I didn't get the context of why Chandler said it. But as I got older, when he says that, I'm like, holy fuck, that is good. So, man, it's just, it's a timeless classic because of that. And man, one of the funniest episodes, this is my favorite episode ever, is when it was the one where Joey and Chandler, they think they know Monica and Rachel better than Rachel and Monica know them. So they do this little competition where Ross does it's a game where it's like a trivia, right? Like it's like, okay, what was Monica's name in when she was a goalie in soccer? Big fat goalie. And like they have a time limit, right, to like get the right answer. And I remember before they started the game, Rachel had a bag on the table of like what they just bought, and Chandler and Joey basically said, like, we can give us 5 guesses to guess the 3 or 4 items in the bag, right? And Ross was doing this thing where it was like, and this is the first, like, what was he saying? He was saying it's like, this is the game we're playing. He was doing it. He was saying it in this voice, and then Chandler was just like, "This is where I love it." He's like, "Stop that now!" Like, you know, just the note of the voice is pissing him off. Oh man, it's just the way he's like, "Stop that now."
Yeah, I think it's funny. Sometimes Chandler wouldn't necessarily say something that was. It's his delivery. It's all in the delivery, right? Of how he would say something, and you know how like he was always known for being super sarcastic.
Yeah.
You know, could you be anyone? Like the way he would deliver that. And I think if anybody had said that, if it was like another actor, it wouldn't be. No. You know what I mean?
There's no way.
It wouldn't be the same.
And I swear to God, that's his own thing. Like the producers,
I think it was totally him. Right.
I'm trying to find a line where he says that. Here we go. Yeah. So what it was, so Joey bets him and Chandler can guess the items in Rachel's bag, right? And then Ross is just like, challenge accepted. And then Joey's like, all right, we'll start with apples. He gets it right. Ross is like, we'll be starting with apples. And Chandler's like, stop that now. So good, man. So fucking good. One of the questions in the trivia was like, what is Monica's great grandmother that passed away? Joey's like, Althea? You're shooting with Althea? Althea is correct. Go shooting. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh man.
So what do you want to get off your chest before we wrap up
I mean,
here?
I don't know if we should save this for the next episode, but it happened recently, a few days ago, where do you know who Chris D'Elia is?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for those that don't, he's a comedian, actor.
Didn't he get into trouble a little while ago? Because he kind of disappeared after a while.
Right. So
is he back now?
He's back now.
Yeah.
He's on tour. He's doing his podcast.
Yeah.
So
can you remind me what exactly happened? Was it some kind of sexual misconduct
I think it was
thing?
Sexual misconduct for like underage girls, where
did they ever find out what actually happened?
Man, I don't know. I think he got accused. He may have actually been charged. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to be careful about what we say, because unless we know the facts, we don't want
unless we know, yeah,
get it wrong.
But
so he's back.
He was
now.
involved with
allegations
regarding that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what I actually kind of want to know what your opinion is on this, but he's been on a lot of podcasts. He's been on The Fighter and the Kid with Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub, and I haven't actually really watched his stand-up, and that's what he's known for. But on the podcast that he goes on, he is ridiculously funny. Like, he is an absolute gem when it comes to being on a podcast and just having the funniest moments. Okay, so I screen recorded a few of the parts of the podcast I was watching that actually made me laugh hysterically, and I sent those clips to one of my closest friends, and I was like, "Yo, like listen to this. This is so fucking funny." Okay, and he replied saying, "Didn't he get accused of like sexual assault with like underage girls?" And I said, "Yeah, he did." And he said, "Well, I don't really want to support someone that does that." And my response to that was, I never said he was a good person. I never said I'm his friend. He just makes me laugh, man. Like, he's a funny guy, right? And I strictly go and listen to him and watch him on podcasts because he brings me that level of entertainment where I get to enjoy myself by laughing at what he's saying and how he's saying it, right? Like, I never said I would, like, I probably wouldn't let my daughter around the guy. I wouldn't be, too fond of him becoming friends with my daughter. And we got into this little thing, and he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, like, I mean, good point." And then I told him, I'm like, "Well, Chris Brown, like, do you still listen to his music?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, okay, like, then what are we talking about?" He pretty much almost killed Rihanna, right? And I do not condone any of that. I'm not saying Chris Brown is a good person, what he stands for.
Okay.
He's probably got a lot of issues that he's dealing with. I probably wouldn't let my daughter date the guy, but he makes good music. I still listen to Chris Brown. Like, if his song comes on and shuffle, if it's a good song, I'm listening to it. It brings enjoyment to my ears. It puts me in a euphoric state based on his music talent. I don't support the guy in any other way. I probably wouldn't vote for him for fucking, if he ran for office. Right? So I'm just kind of like, where's the line, right? Because like, there's a million examples of like that kind of thing. Like Tupac Shakur. He was, a bona fide gangster from what we know, from what I've heard. I don't know. I didn't know the guy personally. he was probably involved or knew or had some sort of affiliation with someone that may have killed multiple, because he is a gang, like he did
Right.
gangster. He was part of gangster activities.
Yeah.
Probably, dealt some drugs, right? Based on who he the gangster persona and like what he was and the street cred. But we still look at him as an icon. I still look at him as an icon. I still think of him as a musical genius.
That's a tough
Biggie,
one,
right? Like what is the line, man? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I think there's definitely there is a line. I mean, to this day, I mean, Michael Jackson's been gone for a long time now, and his name still keeps coming up with, it just in the news, like every now and again, it's like someone else is coming out with this, or the maid's coming out with this, or, and I don't know what to believe. I don't know if any of that stuff actually happened or not, because
let's say
you have people like I read Corey Feldman's book, his biography, and I know as a kid, as a child actor, he spent a lot of time with Michael Jackson, and he's denied anything weird happening. And one thing I don't deny is that Michael Jackson, like just his personality alone, he was a strange dude. He's definitely, I mean, he had no place hanging around with young kids. I'm like, and why are the parents allowing this? Why are parents allowing their kids to go to this rich dude's mansion? That I also question their motives too. What are they looking for? Is it notoriety? Is it money? I don't know what it is. And I still love Michael Jackson's music. I think reputation being tarnished, yeah, it has tarnished a little bit with all the stuff that's come out, but I still listen to his music. Where I do draw the line, I mean, there's certain people where I just can't watch them anymore. Like I used to love The Cosby Show. I can't watch The Cosby Show anymore. Not with just the vile nature of Bill Cosby's personality, everything that's come out. I just can't. I can't do it. But there are other people. There are other,
because it icks you, like it kind of like grosses you out, like kind of makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's because he was known as this, like he kind of became America's dad, right? The Cosby Show was a fantastic show at the time.
I never watched
the original version that came out in the 80s. And you don't look at him the same way. I mean, this really even ties back into some of the struggles that you've had with the type of content that you do on the show. Like, how are people going to perceive me? And so the way I perceive now Bill Cosby is I see them as this sexual predator who roofied women. I don't see him as a dad anymore. That's completely tarnished, right? It doesn't matter. Like, all the good stuff that he did in the past is completely overshadowed by his monstrous behavior in real life. I don't look at him the same way. But especially I let Michael, I give people like Michael Jackson a pass because nothing's really ever really been proven. There's been some, like, a lot of the evidence brought forward has never really been, it's been challenged, and it hasn't been 100% convincing, because you start to think, well, what do these people have? Like, are they just trying to get money? Is this a cash grab that they're just trying to blackmail him into paying up? It's like, one thing I have to say about someone like Michael Jackson is, based on what we know of his abusive relationship with his father and just his shitty childhood, he seemed like he had a very childlike personality. Yeah. Like, he was like a child in a grown man's body. I think, and maybe this is just me justifying all that weird time he spent with kids. And just like what the inside of his mansion was like. He struck me as a guy that basically was trying to create a childhood that he never had.
Yeah.
by having all these toys around him, by having Bubbles, the fucking monkey in his house, and like, you know, a train that ran through his house, and like just like the fact that he called his property Wonderland, right? I think he was trying to recreate something that like he just deep inside was taken, like he needed. It was taken. His childhood was taken away from him as a performer. Can you just imagine what does that do to you as a kid? Just being put into the line, like just being pressured by your parents, like you have to perform, you have to do this, right? You have to reach this level of success. That kind of screws you up psychologically. Like he never really had the childhood that he was supposed to have, that carefree, no responsibilities. He never had that.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't, and they don't have.
Again, that's maybe, I fully acknowledge, maybe that's just me trying to justify
the guy needed
his behavior. Oh, absolutely. He was messed up. He was really messed up.
Yeah, the guy needed to talk to someone. You fucking guy.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, like that's a different, so the example of like Chris Brown, it's fully out in the open. He has admitted that what he did to Rihanna was true. Like he did, you know, assault her.
What actually happened with that?
It was like
just
domestic,
to remind people,
domestic abuse, like domestic violence, like fully like bruised and battered her, and to the point of almost like, you know, really, really hurting her, right? And that's come out. That's on the surface. Like it's something he's actually spoke about. So with him, and that's just, he's just one example. Like I just think, even sometimes when I'm in the car and someone's in the car with me and his song comes on, I like the song, but I almost feel like I have to skip it because of, you know.
Do you? Is that enough?
No, because like, what do you think I should be thinking? Do you think?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you what to think or what to do. I'm just curious what's going through your mind and whether or not. I mean,
I don't support anything he did.
Yeah,
I don't like anything about it.
So that's not enough. So that wouldn't get you to stop.
No, because he makes
supporting
good music.
him as a musician.
Music is like you know, it's something that makes me.
You can separate that. You can separate. You can separate the, like, who he is as a person with the music, with his career, with who he is as a creative.
Because it's just a sound to me. It's just the frequency of that, of a tone, like the beat, his vocals. Like that's just him. His music just makes me. It puts me in a place, like whether it be nostalgia, where I heard a song like 10 years ago and it brings me back to that moment, or it's a new song that.
Fair enough.
Puts me. So
that's the thing I struggle with too, and I think that's like those are. Music is such a powerful thing. It can do all sorts of things, like what you're talking about. It can, in an instant, a song that you hear, you know, within the first few seconds,
put you in a different mood.
Yeah, put you in a different mood, and not only that, it could like instantly bring you back to maybe a place in your life or a moment in your life that something happened, like the nostalgia factor. Oh, that's a song that got me through a really tough breakup when I was a kid, or whatever. You know, whatever it is, it's and music's a universal thing, right? It crosses all boundaries, all languages, and that is definitely a struggle that I have too with certain things, and not just with music, but watching any creative endeavors. How do you separate that from who that person is? Like Woody Allen. I know there are plenty of people out there that won't watch his movies. They're like, I'm not going to support.
What was the deal with him again? What did he do?
Well, because he married the daughter that he adopted.
Oh,
and he's having sex with this girl that he adopted.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
The fuck?
It's wrong.
I didn't know that.
But I will still watch his movies because I mean
is Woody Allen the guy that had that show? He had a TV show, right?
Not that I'm aware of. He's always been known for a filmmaker, not TV. But I mean, he's made lots of garbage movies too. But every now and again, I mean, there are many classic movies that he's made that I can still watch. Even though I don't like him as a person, I don't agree with his behavior, but I still watch them. And then again, going back to the Bill Cosby thing, there's certain people where I can't.
Right.
I just can't do it.
Right.
Right. So it's just, I guess there is a
man.
certain.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's so fucked up what Chris D'Elia did, right? Like, I would.
So is there anyone where, any musician, any artist where you're just, I can't do this. I can't support them.
I mean, not really, man. Like, if you look at a lot of artists now, like, they're always going through different allegations, different accusations. People still listen to them, right? Like, I think music's different, though. Like you said, it's like there's like a different connection, not even to like the actual person, but it's like contextual thing where the music brings you back to a certain place, like actually releases dopamine in your head, because like a good song, like a good sound.
Do you actually forget about it? Like, does that part of like who that person is, does that kind of drift away real quick?
Right. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think when I because Chris Brown actually just dropped a new album like recently, about a month ago. I listened to it from top to bottom.
How's his career doing though?
Ooh, I mean, is he
even touring? Is he selling tickets?
He's touring, but it doesn't look as busy as it should be. Like, Chris Brown was one of those guys where he was on his way to being the biggest superstar in the world. He's super, like, we can't take away the fact that he's talented as fuck.
Well, you can be talented, but you can still be a terrible person.
Right? So,
right. That's the problem.
That's the problem, right? Like, talent, like, he's so talented in making music, dancing. I love his music. Like, is that so bad to say? Right? Like, a lot of people are
I don't
think that is bad to say.
Well, I don't agree with everyone. I know people who just don't want to have anything to do. You know what people got to do with, you do you, as the saying goes.
But selfishly,
but I don't.
Selfishly, I listen to Chris Brown's music, some of his songs, because it makes me feel good. Like, his voice, his song making, his ad libs, his frequency, his tone, his beats, all sound good together, and it makes me happy in the moment that I'm in. Like, why is that such a crime if someone thinks that's wrong? Like, if someone listens to this and thinks that I in any way support what he did or what he's about, it's just stupid. I just like his music. I don't
think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, there are artists that I support that probably are not the best individuals, but I mean, I can say it's the same thing for film for me, because I think that especially with movies, you watch older movies from the 60s, like any era, 80s, 70s, 60s, and I'd say it probably gets worse going even back, just like in terms of like misogyny, right, and sexism. And there are still lots of classic movies that I watch that maybe a lot of people nowadays, the quote unquote woke people, would never watch. But I can separate, to me, those movies, that was a moment in time. And you have to realize that you can't apply modern day, I think this is super important. You can't apply modern day values, modern day thinking, modern day progressiveness. You can't apply that to stuff done 50 or 60 years ago, because people didn't think that way back then. Now, you don't necessarily have to agree with it all, but I think if we need to evaluate art, I'll use art as a blanket term for anything that people create, but we have to be able to evaluate art as for it is what it was at that time. And I don't think it's a good thing to delete history. Because there are lots of people now, more so than ever, the internet police, they just want to wipe stuff off the face of the planet so it doesn't exist. That to me is scary. I don't want to live in a world like that. I think history is a teaching point. I think it's dangerous. I mean, there are schools that don't even want to talk about World War II, like Nazism. I think history is a teaching point. If you learn from that, like this was a moment in time where a group of people in this country, there were individuals that were incredibly evil and perpetrated evil and murdered tens of millions of people for very, and I'll use the term polite, very misguided reasons. And that's a teaching point. And I don't think we should be retroactively going back and editing stuff.
Absolutely. I don't think so either. No. I don't think so. I mean, nothing, it's all facts. That's all, right? I mean, I don't know. It's just one key thing you did say, art, right? Like I respect and enjoy Chris Brown's art. I respect and enjoy Chris D'Elia's art, which is humor, comedy, makes me laugh, right? And personally, I can separate it, like you said. I can differentiate who he is as a person, what he does outside of comedy with what he brings to the table on a certain podcast, right? So, I mean, and that's the thing, man. Like, I don't know, like then there's instances where like we still, put, Tupac in a iconic category where he is still a cultural icon, but
hugely respected still.
Hugely respected. And to be honest, he wasn't the the most innocent guy. He was what people considered a bona fide gangster, right? And that's just who he was. That was a product of his environment, I'm sure.
But people still listen to his music.
I still listen to his
they
music.
Still consider him a brilliant lyricist,
right? It still gives you that thrill. It still gives you that excitement. His music still puts you in a state of mind where you start feeling good. Like what, right? So I mean, I don't know. It's just
I think that's a good point.
You can't be woke enough, man. You can't be woke enough. That's the theme of this pod. That's the theme of this episode. You can't be woke enough. Right? It always comes back full circle too. When you thought you were woke, when you thought you were just the wokest you could be more woke. And people will let you know about it, that you could be more woke.
Oh, they will. They will indeed. I think that's a good point. That's a good place to end for today. It's not a good place to be, I think, when we start, because if we really started putting every piece of art in the trash just because that someone said a certain something that you didn't agree with, or maybe they weren't a very good person. I mean, we just think about how many thousands of albums, movies, anything, just would, all of that would just go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think we should be doing that. I'm not saying that we should be. I just want to be clear. I'm not saying we shouldn't be critical, but you got to realize that stuff was done. It was done in the past. It was a moment in time when people had different values, different perspectives. Just society was different back then.
And for those that think, for those that consider themselves, just woke individuals, no one's perfect. We've all done some fucked up shit that we regret, that we look back on and think, well, why did I do that? So no one's a beacon of innocence, right? No one is as innocent as they think they are, right? So stop lying to yourself, right? Really look deep into who you are and what you've done, and just understand that like these things happen and like life just goes on. Life just goes on. Right? And you know,
that's the thing is I feel like you're not allowed to make mistakes anymore because the internet mob is going to come for you, right? That's not a good place to be in, right? Just everything that I see, I'm on social media every day, and I'm watching this stuff evolve, and I'm watching how people react to stuff. And, you know, people have become, there's certain people that feel like they are gatekeepers of a certain thing, and they just aren't. And some people that seem to believe, they're under the impression that they're speaking for everybody in that certain subculture, and they're just not.
No, get over yourself. You're not.
Right? It's just where human beings are fallible, and
that's virtue signaling, man. Like,
virtue signaling. People, you see this all, even though they're what they write in their bios, right? The stuff that they put in there, it's just like, give me a break.
Because it's a market. There's a market for it now. There's a market for finding something that's a little dicey that could be twisted in a wrong way. I talked about this with Tunji. Finding a specific part and blowing it out of proportion, and then people giving you the validation and the respect of, you know, wow, you're so woke, you're so ahead of things for realizing and finding that, and pointing out that this person is a shitty person. It's like, no, that's first of all not what, you know, that's not the intention of that, whatever it was. And B, you're only doing this for attention. It's all for attention.
Yeah.
Attention, people don't realize half the things they do is just, they're doing it for attention. They don't realize it. I don't realize it sometimes. Right? So just for the clicks, for the attention, for the clout, whatever it is, virtue signaling, there's a market for it. And hey, that's why podcasting's scary too, man. It's like,
yeah, but there's something exhilarating though too, and like freeing to be able to do this. Because like you take like what we're doing now, you know, you take it for granted, but doing this kind of thing didn't exist 20 years ago.
No.
You know, and really the internet has been able to democratize journalism, right? It's given a platform for people. You know, it started with blogging, right? You know, before, if you had an opinion about anything, you had to go work in media, or you had to become a journalist, right? You had to become a columnist at a well-respected newspaper to be heard, to have your voice heard. And now we really take that for granted, right? Because anybody can have a blog, anybody can have a YouTube channel, anybody could have a podcast,
yeah.
right? So we really do take it for granted, but there is something exciting.
Man, I think one of the things that I hope this podcast does, or just us talking about different things with different guests, is that we are the inkling of change that this world is hoping to see, and we make some sort of impact. Right? Whether it makes you rethink about what you have been thinking for a while, or makes you question some things, whatever it is, I hope there is a grain of difference made with this pod. And I mean, that would be good for me, right? It's really putting it out there, really saying whatever I gotta say.
Yeah.
Making people courageous enough and giving them the courage to say whatever they want. Right? And I'm not saying I'm a big time influencer. I'm not anyone in the grand scheme of things, but I'm doing it. I'm saying whatever I want to say, and right? Like I just hope.
Yeah, and I think we should also encourage the viewers and listeners too. If you want to chime in on this particular topic, any of this stuff, the points that we touched on, let us know, because we want to hear from you too. And that's one of the things that I want to do is I want to really incorporate our listeners' feedback into it, whether it's, stuff that that they've said on the podcast, whether it was a comment or, at some point maybe we can get people to leave voicemail messages and we can respond back to that kind of stuff. Because I think it would be good to try to create, this is a good opportunity to create a community of people. Like, even if we don't all agree, that we can at least bring this stuff out into the open and talk about it, because it's good to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Don't get offended. Right? I encourage you not to get offended. I encourage you to think at this with an open perspective on many different angles, because you don't realize how many different angles there are until you really, really think about it and listen to other people speak. So I encourage everyone to do that, man, and let's just see where it goes, man. I mean, for better or worse, we're doing it. I'm doing it. I started this pod in hopes that it could go somewhere, and I really hope it does. And we're going to be bringing tons of guests in, big time guests.
Some surprises. Stay tuned.
Surprises. And honestly, honestly, it sounds like a fair trade to me. Shout out Drake. Fair trade.
So this is going to be episode 24. You want to take us out?
Yeah. Episode 24, Enjoy Your 24. Since it is episode 24, I want to give one quick little shout out. Rest in peace, Kobe. Still think about you, man. I it's still it still doesn't make sense, and you push me every day. I still think about you every day, whether it be for 30 seconds or 5 minutes. You have inspired me to do a lot of things, and the inspiration made me start this podcast. Hence the name of the podcast, Enjoy Your 24. Enjoy your day. And I know you would understand where I'm coming from, and I would have your full support on it. So just a quick shout out for Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace. A lot more content coming soon. This is going to be, we're here for the long haul, baby. Ain't no stopping it. We're just getting started.